We're here because free speech is under attack. We're here because people are being convinced that socialism works. We're here because people are being judged guilty until proven innocent. We are fighting back with facts. This is not a safe zone, so buckle up, Buttercup. This is the raw, naked truth.
Welcome to the Raw Naked Truth. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin, and here's what's in the news. Apparently, the Supreme Court has voted to overturn Roe v. Wade, the landmark 1973 decision that established abortion rights nationwide. Politico reported, citing what it said was a leaked initial draft majority opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito. Quote, Roe was egregiously wrong from the start, unquote. Alito wrote in the draft opinion. Hours after the report was released, scores of protesters gathered outside the Supreme Court to rail against the decision, which, if released by the court, would uphold Mississippi's ban on most abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. The court's decisions aren't final until published, and justices sometimes change their votes as they circulate draft opinions. If this is authentic, and it has not yet been authenticated, this is the first high court draft leaked in the court's modern history. The Supreme Court police and FBI have begun an investigation into the identity of the leaker. Again, the leaked draft has not been authenticated. Additionally, on many occasions, decisions of the court put forth in early drafts of opinions have been changed before they were officially announced. So if the draft is real and accurate, the court would overturn Roe v. Wade. Constitutional attorneys on both sides of the issue have long said Roe v. Wade was too weak a case for abortion rights to be based on. One issue with Roe v. Wade is that the time period of 24 weeks to have an abortion was based on the time when a fetus could be viable outside the womb. In 1973, that time was 24 weeks. With advances in technology and medicine, it has become possible to keep a baby alive at earlier ages. It's also important to note that if the Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade, that does not make abortions illegal. The decision would give states the right to make their own laws. If you live in a state that does not have a law specifically banning abortions, overturning Roe v. Wade would not affect abortion rights in your state. State legislatures will be able to codify the right to an abortion. In other news, Russia plans to annex several regions in eastern Ukraine as a bid to solidify their gains despite continuing battlefield setbacks. It was not immediately clear how Ukraine would respond to the move, but it could thrust the conflict into an unpredictable and even more explosive phase. Russia resumed shelling of the battered Mariupol steel plant, where about 200 civilians, including 20 children, are hiding out with the last Ukrainian defenders of the besieged port city. Dozens of civilians managed to evacuate the steel plant over the weekend. A convoy of buses was supposed to shuttle out more on Monday, but the plan stalled. The Federal Reserve on Tuesday starts a two-day policy meeting, expected to conclude with a 0.5 percentage point interest rate hike. The Fed has telegraphed the move as a part of its accelerating efforts to fight inflation, which has surged to a 40-year high. A 0.5 point increase would be the central bank's sharpest hike since 2000. The Fed is expected to follow up with another 0.5 point hike at its next meeting in June. Another could come in July, with further increases later in the year. Economists also expect the Fed to announce that it will start reducing its Treasury and mortgage bond holdings, which it piled up as it pumped money into the economy to boost the recovery from the pandemic-induced 2020 recession. The Supreme Court ruled on Monday that Boston violated the Constitution by refusing to raise a Christian group's flag in a city hall ceremony because the city had never turned away anyone else. The city government argued that its ceremonial flag-raising program was a form of government speech, so it could choose which flags it could fly. Lower courts agreed with the city, but Justice Stephen Breyer, writing for the unanimous High Court, rejected that logic. He said the flags weren't government speech because the city had no role in the creating of their message. That meant the flag raisings amounted to private speech, so rejecting a lone group constituted a violation of its First Amendment free speech protections. Finally, Amazon workers have voted down a proposal to unionize at a second warehouse on Staten Island in New York. According to the Monday vote count, the 618 to 380 vote conducted over 4 days last week marked a setback for the Amazon labor union. The union was formed by a former warehouse supervisor, Chris Smalls, and co-worker Derek Palmer, who got workers at a massive Staten Island fulfillment center to vote in favor of the union last month. We mentioned on yesterday's podcast that that decision is being appealed and the formation of the union at that facility may be overturned. That was the first Amazon facility to unionize, and 55% of those voting backed the upstart union. The vote at the second warehouse came as Amazon announced it was ending its COVID-19 sick leave policy, which gave staffers infected with the coronavirus 10 paid days off. Now, staffers will get up to 5 unpaid but excused sick days. That's the Raw Naked Truth. You can listen to every episode of The Raw Naked Truth, as well as the rest of the Xvadio podcast network at xvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcast app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts. We'll see you next time.